Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sarah Lowther, and a warm welcome to today's Master Investor webinar, which is very different to our usual offering and one that I'm sure will delight, as we're often being advised to have a balanced, diversified portfolio. So how about collectibles and not of the share certificate type? Now, you're in for a real treat over the next 45 minutes, and this is an interactive webinar. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please put them in the chat or Q&A feature, and we'll endeavour to get us through as many as possible. And without further ado, I'm very, very happy to introduce Anthony Love, Head of Collections at Paul Fraser Collectables. A very warm welcome to you, Anthony.
Hi, thank you, Sarah, and thank you to everyone for joining. As Sarah mentioned, I'm Head of Collections and Portfolio Management here at Paul Fraser Collectibles. Just a bit of brief history about myself and how I got into this business. I previously worked in finance here in the island of Jersey, worked for the Royal Bank of Scotland group when I left school, right through for 13 years. And then 2008 happened and all the markets crashed and Royal Bank of Scotland nearly went under. And if it wasn't for the government, probably would have done. And at that time, the finance industry over here wasn't great. And my job was purely as a payments clerk. And on the back of that, I took the opportunity to change career, really, and took a voluntary redundancy from the Royal Bank of Scotland group. Once I'd spent my redundancy money, I was looking for a new job, and a job with similar skills that I picked up as a relationship manager in a bank came up with the world-renowned stamp dealer Stanley Gibbons. I have to admit, I didn't really know much about collectibles or stamps at the time, but the skill set required for the job gave me the opportunity to begin work with them. And I worked with Stanley Gibbons for 8 years here in Jersey, and headed up the office in Guernsey as well. Their Guernsey arm went into administration in 2017, and I took the opportunity to join up with our old CEO, Mike Hall, and also Paul Fraser, who our namesake, really, our chairman, to come into this business, which is very different to Stanley Gibbons in the fact that we sell all forms of rare collectibles, stamps, coins, autographs, famous hair, from time to time artwork and luxury watches as well. So that's just a little bit about me. If we just move on to the next slide to talk a little bit about the business. So as I've mentioned, we're based predominantly in Jersey and the Channel Islands, but we have an office in Bristol in the UK, and we provide a comprehensive portfolio management service for investors in rare collectibles. And we're sort of dedicated to the rarity, quality, authenticity and service that we're able to provide people with. Next slide, please. And we are now the largest private collectibles dealer in the world, sitting on over £50 million worth of collectibles here in the Channel Islands, and also a small amount within the UK. Next slide, please. So our service really is about building collections for people who want to diversify their finances, really. The majority of our clients won't be exposed to collectibles, but they will be exposed to property, the stock market, precious metals, that sort of thing. And what we provide is a portfolio management service. So we use our knowledge and experience to help people build a collection. So, for example, a client will come to us with maybe £10,000 that they're looking to diversify. some spare cash that they've had, and we will build them a portfolio by sourcing items from our current stock holding or from other sources, other auction houses, using our sort of knowledge that we've built up over a period of time. And we also provide, importantly for investors, we provide them with vault storage and specialist insurance. Now, a lot of collectors like to hold the items themselves, but we provide, for investors, we provide the storage and insurance. So again, a lot of people, they will see their items that they've purchased from us. They might view them in the first instance, and then they're locked away in sort of temperature controlled, humidity controlled storage, so that they know that when the time comes that they want to sell them, they're in exactly the same condition they were when they purchased them. Sometimes if a client is storing the material themselves, it can deteriorate in condition. We've seen that in quite a few instances where people come to us looking to sell items that have deteriorated whilst they've been in their own care. And also it takes away the risk of theft and having to pay quite high insurance premiums. A lot of the insurance companies will try and steer clear of things like collectibles. You would have to have them specially named on your insurance policy. So it takes away a lot of the hassle from that. Next slide, please. And yeah, so we only acquire rare collectibles that we want to hold as long-term investments on our balance sheet. So a lot of the material that we hold doesn't appear on our website. Paul Fraser, our chairman, or the other buyers within the business will buy stock that is aligned with the client's interests, but also our own as well, so that we can profit when the client profits. For example, we've had items that we bought 10 years ago that haven't seen the light of day since, and then our buyers and Paul Fraser himself in particular will decide that now is the time to move that on and buy something different. So it's very much aligned. The interests, our buying strategy is very much aligned with our clients' interests. We don't, for example, hold a lot of sporting memorabilia. Now, it's something that I actually personally quite like, but our general readers and database of clients are more interested in the historical items that we sell, as opposed to a signed football shirt by Cristiano Ronaldo or someone along those lines. I'll come to the due diligence 5 key rules on a further down slide. So if we could just go on to the next slide, please. So this is how we sort of acquire material. We only buy from global leaders in the field. So we track auctions around the UK, Europe, America, and Asia to a certain extent. But we are also, because of our name within the business as well, we are also sort of the first port of call for people who are looking to sell large collections. There might have been a death, so we deal a lot of the time with solicitors when a collection is there. Our experts will review it, value it, maybe offer a price for it. But we're always looking for hidden value in items. I mean, some of the things that we've sourced from auction recently would be this Henry VIII gold sovereign. We acquired that from an auction in the UK. Now, again, this isn't available for sale at the moment. It's something that we bought to store on our balance sheet, basically, for the future. So yeah, next slide, please. So this goes back to the previous slide. So the 5 golden rules when acquiring a collectible: they've got to be rare, they've got to be of high quality. So again, turning back to the coin that I just showed you here, this is the highest possible grades that this coin could ever be in. Now, you might find others that have been, let's say, battered, if you like, and might be a Henry VIII sovereign, but it's not in as good condition. So the condition is everything. Quality and condition is everything when it comes to collectibles, as is the authenticity and provenance. Now, we get probably 100 valuation requests per week from people who've been in their attic and they found a letter from Sir Winston Churchill, or so they think, or something signed by Queen Elizabeth II. But there's no provenance that goes with that. So they just found it in their loft. They don't know how it got there. They don't know whose it was. So if we're unable to track the sort of the history and the provenance of an item, then we don't even consider it. So you can, if you were to search collectibles on eBay, for example, there's plenty of people selling signed memorabilia. 90% of material on eBay is ultimately fake. So unless we can provide our clients with sufficient provenance and authenticity, we don't even look at it. And fourthly, liquidity. So liquidities can be is always a difficult thing for collectibles, because sometimes it can take some time to sell an item. Sometimes they can sell really quickly. But if we're able to provide a client with, some sort of liquidity guidance, so it might be 3 months timeline to sell a rare Beatles signature or something along those lines. And then most importantly, in my eyes, is the price. You don't want to overpay for something. So it's always about getting the best value for money that you can get an item for, providing it's of, has the sufficient rarity and quality and authenticity. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit about the historic growth of rare collectibles from the Knight Frank Index, showing graphs of how much certain items have gone up, certain categories have gone up over the last sort of 10 years. So interestingly, rare stamps in particular, British rare stamps, have shown a drop over the last 10 years in total. They're down actually 7%. Now we see this now as a good buying opportunity for us and for our clients, because everybody starts their journey in stamps or stamp investing in the British market. The very first stamps being the penny blacks here. I'm not sure how well you can see them, from 1840. So most collectors will start with Queen Victorian British stamps from 1840 and gradually work their way through into other categories. Classic cars, not an area that we trade in. They're very difficult to store. Obviously, they're pretty large, but again, that's shown a large growth over the last 10 years and probably will continue to do so. The classic cars now, for my sort of era, are starting to go up quite a lot in value. So a Ford Cortina, that sort of car. So what I would have wanted to own when I was a teenager would have been a Ford Capri, but the prices of those are massively going up in value now. The other two categories I'm just going to touch on now are watches and handbags. These saw massive uptick in growth during COVID, for the pure reason the factories that were making the bags and the watches all closed down, and they weren't making any to keeping up with the demand, and they're still struggling to do so now. So rare watches is a very fast moving market, and again, sort of watches that we sell are Rolexes or Patek Philippe. That's that sort of category. Rolex Rolexes are still, as I say, still struggling to keep up with the demand in the market now. And it's very hard unless you are a regular customer of a jeweler or Rolex themselves. You can't just walk in to a jeweler shop anymore and just buy a Rolex. They're not readily available for someone just to buy off the shelf unless you have had a long-term relationship with the jewelers. So they're very difficult to source, and the secondary market for watches has really boomed, as it has for sort of Hermes handbags, that sort of category as well. Coins, again, rare coins has provided 124% growth in the last 10 years. Now these aren't your typical coins. They're not valuable for their bullion weight. So the Henry VIII coin I showed earlier, that has got a value of £75,000. Its bullion value will be a fraction of that. It's more for its historical value. So these are historical coins, ancient coins from the Roman Empire, English hammered coins, US milled coins, that sort of thing, but not coins that are heavily bullion weighted. Rare whiskey, again, an area we've never really got into, but that has actually started to cool off a little bit now. So if you bought that a few years ago, you would have been doing quite well now. But another big area, there's quite a few firms that do that in the UK. Interestingly, there's no on the Knight Frank Index, there's nothing about wine. Wine had a bit of bad press, and I recall going on a seminar with a wine company, a gold company, and a collectibles company, and the chap who did the wine talk said the best thing you can do with a wine is to drink it, and I probably agree with him on that. It's best to enjoy it. And also the final category being autographs, another big area of growth. Tend to be historical autographs where the person is no longer with us. We're starting to see a lot more growth in the market for what I would see as celebrities when I was growing up. So, or celebrities and musicians like Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, even most recently sort of Oasis. Those sort of autographs are going up quite a lot in value as sort of my generation have a bit more wealth supposedly, and they're buying into items that they were interested in when they were teenagers or in their early 20s. But the classic autographs like Beatles autographs, anything signed by Queen Elizabeth II, royalty is always good. Winston Churchill, Albert Einstein, those sort of historical figures are very, very popular with our clients. Next slide, please. So when someone's built a collection with us and they're looking to sell, we sell using three methods really. We sell by what's called a private treaty sale, where we would market the collections for sale on our website to our database of readers and to people we have on our client wants list, if you like. We have people who are actively seeking certain items for their collections. Just today, for example, someone's after a J.D. Rockefeller signed share certificate, which we've been able to source today, and I'm going to offer it to them later on this afternoon. We run our own periodic auctions, but we try and stay away from running our own auctions because we prefer to generate the returns under the private treaty service. So we use a lot of third-party auction houses who run specialist auctions. So if you've got a Beatles autograph, for example, there might be a firm in the US who are running a Beatles-specific auction, and they're looking for auction lots. And if we think that they can get a better price for a piece, then we will suggest to the clients auctioning it through them, and we arrange that for the client so they don't have to get involved. There is an option that's not mentioned on this slide, which is you could sell the item yourself. You own it; it's yours. If your neighbour or someone else that you know is willing to pay you much more than the valuation price, and you're more than welcome to sell it privately yourself. After all, it is your item, so you can do with it as you wish. Next slide, please. So with our portfolio management service, every client has a portfolio manager attached to them, and we provide regular updates in what's going on in the market, whether gold coins are showing a rise in value, so it might be a good opportunity to get into gold English hammered coins. If a client comes to us and they're looking for specific recommendations, we will provide recommendations based on what they're seeking to do. Generally speaking, stereotypical investment client will come to us with, I say £10,000, but they'll come to us with £10,000 that they're looking to get into the collectibles market. So we will provide them with a portfolio. It will probably contain a coin, some stamps, and probably some autograph memorabilia. Watch-wise, you're looking at a higher starting portfolio to include watches, but generally speaking, you might get 5 items for sort of £10,000 that we would deem high enough quality to be included as sort of an investment portfolio. And as part of the service, we'll provide comprehensive annual valuations so that you can see how your assets are doing, and give you market intelligence at that time. So it might be time that we think, actually, this autograph has probably gone up as much as it will in the next couple of years. So you might want to move that on, and we will give you advice on that as the investment goes along. And when someone's buying a portfolio, we'll show you its price history and what it was worth 10 years ago to what it was worth today, basically. So you can see how it's performed relative to today's price. And yeah, as I mentioned, we'll give strategic advice on whether we think an item should be sold or held onto for the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. And yeah, so when it comes to selling the portfolio, as I mentioned, we use the auctions and our global network. Buying for us entitles the client to much lower commission than you would get if you come to us directly to sell a piece. And we are very good at describing items, and importantly is matching the sellers with the buyers as well, so that we can hopefully increase the liquidity when the time comes that somebody wants to sell. Next slide, please. To help us achieve that, we've got a great marketing team here. Got a head of marketing and 3 copywriters. Now, our 3 copywriters send out emails to our readers, probably at least 10 to 12 individual specific items per week that we have segmented readers who might only be interested in stamps or only be interested in autographs, and we tailor our sort of email newsletter service to those clients accordingly. And every item has its full history behind it and why you should buy it and why, the pros for owning such a piece. And we've got great in-house photography and videography. And we also have quite a good rapport with the press, let's say. We get quite a lot of press attention based on some of the uniqueness of the items. If you wanted to maybe say Google some coverage that we had in recently, we had some Cillian Murphy hair, which I'll probably get to at a later stage, for sale. And we got a lot of publicity around the Oscars when he won Best Actor, didn't he, in Oppenheimer. And we also got quite a lot of press on the rarest British stamp that we have had consigned to us. Again, that appeared in all of the major newspapers, and in the news as well. And our website content and newsletters and daily blogs receive a hell of a lot of hits. Next slide, please. I won't stay too long on this next one. This is just sort of a bit of Google Analytics and showing, how many sort of organic hits we have a month. So we've had 36,000 people looking at our website this month. Now, I don't know how that goes alongside how many people would be clicking on Amazon, for example. But for collectibles, I think that's quite a lot of people looking at a collectibles website on a monthly basis. So this is just sort of how good we are at reaching out to people by Google descriptions and the like. Next slide, please. So this is just sort of how we contact clients through our newsletter database. So we've got a subscriber base of 20,000 people over a couple of different platforms. This is just a specific Paul Fraser Collectibles subscribers. So this is people who get sort of the autographs on a daily basis. So 11,500 people there will see our autograph emails on a daily basis. Next slide, please. And yeah, so this is where we've reached sort of with our media coverage. BBC, CNN, New York Times, Daily Mail. Yeah. Ripley's, believe it or not, so that people we've sourced material for. The British Museum as well. So yeah, we've got quite a good reach there. Next slide, please. So this is quite an interesting one. There's a new market catalyst at the moment where there's lots of new museums opening, and they're, on average 4 museums a day are opening up, and they're buying a lot of collections, making a lot of the material that we sell a lot scarcer in the market. And it's taking it away from private clients. So sometimes it's getting harder to source. So, for example, on the next slide, please, you'll see in the last year the British Museums acquired £109 million worth of material. New York's Museum of Modern Art, 50 million, and the Getty, 100 million. So they're just 3 of the headline museums there. So that's that's quite a major catalyst at the moment as well. Next slide, please. I won't touch too long on this, but there are benefits in estate planning and tax planning on gifting sort of collectibles to heirs. I'm not going to be giving sort of any tax advice, but it is a good sort of tax break for people in the UK in particular, in donations to museum. But one of the things that some of my clients do as they're getting to a certain ages, they've enjoyed their collections for quite a period of time. They don't want to sell them. They want someone to inherit them. So they actually change the ownership from themselves onto their heirs, and it's a good opportunity for them to inherit something valuable in the future, as opposed to a property or balance of a bank account. One of our largest clients, in fact, he's a optician in Australia, and he put in his will that he left his stamp collection to his daughters, but they don't know. So they may be thinking it's an old stamp album or something along those lines. But when they realise he'd spent £10 million worth on it, they'll probably be quite happy. Next slide, please. Yeah, so again, more on museums here, and its donations to museums are. Well, this is in the States actually, so we'll move on to the next one, please. Yeah, so tax breaks for museum donations in the UK, acceptance in lieu scheme, and there's a cultural gift scheme as well if someone was wanting to donate something to a museum in the future. Next slide, please. So yeah, we're here to help you build an award-winning collection. We do that quite a lot for our clients who specifically want certain things. These coins pictured in the image here are all material that we have available for sale, and it's all of high-end quality. So yeah, next slide, please. So the experience of holding a rare or historic item in your hands is simply it is special. In my former life, or when I first started in this business, I didn't really grasp that concept. But as time has gone on, it is nice to hold a bit of history in your hand, and being a custodian of that for the future is good. It gives some clients a certain amount of satisfaction as well. Others, there are others who literally will want to buy a portfolio to make money in the future. Another example of a client that we had. We went to a lot of work building him a portfolio for £2 million. Like days worth of work we went to putting together this really important collection of stamps and coins and memorabilia, and I took photocopies round to his house to show him all the work that we'd gone to. He flicked through it in 2 minutes and handed us a check, and he never wanted that to be stored by himself. He just wanted to hold it for sort of 10-15 years and then sell it. So that's, yeah, but there are certain clients who will like to hold the item themselves and enjoy it while they're owning it. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, this is sort of leading on to what I was just saying there. This is actually in the background there. You've got Paul Fraser and Mike Hall. This is Paul's library at his house, so he's got quite a lot of memorabilia, as you can see, hanging on his wall there, that he likes to enjoy. Again, that's stock that he has bought for predominantly himself, but maybe to sell in the future at a later date. And that's just one wall of his library that is got covered there in important signed memorabilia. And he's a big collector of signed menus from gala dinners, that sort of thing, where there's been famous attendees. And I know he's particularly looking for a menu from the Titanic, but that's something that's eluded him for quite a few years, I believe. And next slide, I think we're nearly there. So yeah, rare collectibles are a portable, that should say, global currency. You can trade them seamlessly in most major cities in the world. It's a safeguard against sort of inflation, currency risks, again, if you're really that way inclined, a lot of people think the end of the world might be coming. Stamps and coins might be a portable asset that would be easily traded if the banking system were to fail or something in the future. So it's a good diversification tool, and it's very portable, and offers protection from currency fluctuations. And I think that's the last slide, please. So be delighted if you wanted to hear more about our services, and you can get in touch by contacting me via the info@Paul Fraser Collectibles, directly on the telephone here in Jersey. More than happy to have private video calls with people. If you're just interested in finding out a little bit more in the background without, anybody sort of pestering you, or not pestering you, but without the need to have a private conversation, you can sign up to our sort of newsletter service, so you can see the sort of things that we offer on a daily basis, and you can do that on our website at paulfrasercollectibles.com. There's a subscribe button, and we will sign you up to our newsletter service. It's free of charge, and you might find something very interesting in there. And I think that's just about it from me. If anybody's got any questions, I'm sure Sarah's got a few she might want to pass across.
Thank you, Anthony. You got me all misty-eyed about my first car, even though you don't deal in. My first car was a Ford Escort Mark II.
Right.
Yeah, wish I'd kept it, but in any case.
But those cars are the ones that, again, it's probably from people our age, their first cars are now what they're collecting. But then a lot of people collect Aston Martins and Ferraris and the like as well.
Yeah, that's what it's currently in my garage.
Yeah.
Obviously. It was interesting you were talking about museums and your presentation. I mean, would you act as a conduit between client and museum, and take commission for introducing and executing a sale, as it were?
Yes, we would. Yeah. I mean, we're working quite a lot on the museum side of the business now, because we see that as quite a good opportunity moving forward. So it's still in its early stages with us, but we've actually bought a collection from the British Postal Museum in the past, and that helped finance the underground station that goes into the British Postal Museum, for example. So we're very much looking at offering our rarest items through museums. I mean, they're not necessarily going to be interested in some of the smaller pieces that we have, but generally speaking, we see this as a...
Sorry, you mentioned the word rarest there. Does rarest usually mean the most valuable? Because James is saying, what is the most valuable item in your portfolio?
Exciting area. But at the moment, we have the largest complete block of penny blacks in existence, which is a block of 18 penny blacks from 1840, unused, and they're priced at £1 million. That's our biggest stock item at the moment that's currently available. Rarest doesn't mean the most expensive. Unique items are sometimes, for example, better placed in an auction, because it's hard to judge how much somebody's willing to pay for a unique piece. So that would be better placed probably through an auction. Certain things can go for a lot more money than you would expect in an auction house.
So those 18 penny blacks, you bought it because right at the beginning you said your current stock holding is things that you would like to hold. So you've got 18 penny blacks. So if there's somebody, so when you bought them, it's not just for the boss's library. You're obviously wanting to hold them, or for them to appreciate, or for someone in this webinar to make you an offer.
Correct. Yeah. So we were able to get them at a reasonable price compared to market value. So we'll make a slight profit on those when it comes to sell, but then the client will be getting. Again, this is a relatively unique item in terms of it's the largest block going, but it's not. There were 68 million penny blacks printed, so it's not that unique. But to have it as a whole block of 18 is particularly rare. So we got it for a good price, so we're able to sell it for a good price. You could argue that you could probably get more than that £1 million if we were auctioning it ourselves. But we would like someone to buy it privately.
Okay, so aside from the penny blacks, the block of penny blacks, James asks another question. Are there any new trends emerging in collectibles outside of the more traditional items that you've mentioned?
Rare trends, traditional items.
I'm thinking about non-fungible tokens like digital.
Yeah, so that trend didn't really take off as well as we thought it would do in collectibles. We were actually set up to sell physical assets as non-fungible tokens, and we tried that, and we had some success. But the market in particular for collectibles, I mean, we tried to set up in a former role in Stanley Gibbons, for example, we tried to set up a rare stamp fund where people would own part of the fund, a fraction of the fund. But when it was getting sold to sort of fund managers, they said, why wouldn't we just buy the whole asset ourselves and have the whole asset and enjoy that, as opposed to having a fraction of it or a part of it. So it hasn't had as much success. Fractional ownership and non-fungible tokens. I mean, NFTs are, the bubble has burst on those now, really, I think, hasn't it? I mean, it might come back again. And if it does, we'll be in place to capitalize on that as well. But, yeah.
Okay, so a tough question from Anonymous.
Mm.
As you are not regulated, how can we know that the advice you are giving is genuine and not just for your own profit?
There's a very transparent market for collectibles. So the prices that we market material for, we can't price anything. We can't price items too high because we'll never sell it. And the provenance for most of these items, people will see where it was sold, when it was sold. Through auction realizations. We don't set the prices for this material. It's how it sells in the market. I mean, one example, if I can just show it briefly now. I won't get it out of its paper, but so this is a signed Beatles photo from the film. They're filming, I think it was Bermuda or the Bahamas. They were filming Help. Now we have this on sale for £35,000. It's signed by all four, and it's a personalised item. We're underselling this. A similar lesser item sold in an auction in America November last year, and it realised $144,000. So we are underselling this because we were able to acquire it relatively cheaply. Paul Fraser thinks we should probably sell it for a lot more than we are doing at the moment, but as it stands, that's sort of the price. And Paul Fraser, actually, he's been in the business for so many years now. He's the world-renowned Beatles autograph expert. That's how he started in the collectibles business. He used to own a record shop in Bristol, and someone came in and sold him a Beatles record. I think it was in the late 70s. I think he offered them £10 for it, and then realised it was worth a lot more than the £10 he'd bought it for. And that's how he got into collectibles and has become a Beatles expert. But yeah, generally speaking, there's plenty about us around on the internet. We're a trusted source. We've been doing it for countless years, and with anything, if we price it too high, then we'll never be able to sell it in the market.
Okay, so today's price is £35,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And another from Anonymous. What sort of market is there in collectible photographs, following on from what you've just shown us?
Collectibles photographs or signed photographs or
Just said
photo
collectible photographs, so you can interpret that as you like.
signed photographs is a popular area, particularly if the person was present when they signed the photograph, because that gives some added provenance. So you went to a meet the celebrity, and they were signing photographs there in front of you. That's got good provenance. So there's lots of people around who sell signed photographs, and it's good. It depends on the celebrity or the historical person who signed the photographs. We're selling a signed Albert Einstein sketch that he'd signed. Someone did a sketch of him, and he signed it. So we're selling that for sort of £15,000, I think it is. So yeah, it's a popular area, and if I was collecting signed photographs, I would go by sort of celebrities that I grew up with or grew up watching or listening to, and collect them that way. The only reason I don't have a large collection myself is because I have a large mortgage. So
Okay, oversharing. Right, listen. David Proudfoot says VAT.
Mhm.
Do you have any comments about this? So that's another open-ended question.
Yep. We're Channel Island based, so anything purchased from us doesn't have any VAT attached to it. The price is the price.
Got it. Okay, going back to your previous life, Anonymous says, haven't stamps gone down in value because of the Stanley Gibbons fiasco? So I don't really know what this fiasco is, if you're able to add some color on that.
Yeah, sure. So Stanley Gibbons had two arms. So Stanley Gibbons Group and Stanley Gibbons Guernsey Limited. Stanley Gibbons Guernsey Limited used to offer clients investment contracts where they had guaranteed returns built into them. So, for example, you could buy a portfolio of stamps today, and in 5 years' time, you would get at least 5% per annum back on that at the end. And all of these contracts had an end date to them with a guaranteed return buyback in them. And Stanley Gibbons Group got into difficulties and were looking to exit that sort of perceived guarantees that they had in place with these investment contracts. So they put the Guernsey investment business into administration and liquidation and so on and so forth. That has had a sort of softening of the market, particularly because of the supply that has come onto the market subsequent to that administration of Stanley Gibbons, where there's a lot of choice around now, and there was a lot of people got a lot of the holders of the stamps got a little bit spooked by it. But if they'd held on to them for a little while longer and ridden out the storm, there wouldn't have been as much of a sort of flood onto the market. And the GB market had already been flat for a couple of years, and I think in one of the earlier slides, I think I've shown it's gone down sort of 7% in the last 10 years. That is gradually slowing down as that supply those stamps are getting snapped up now by people who are starting their investment journey, and that's they will become scarcer again as time goes along. So we see the GB market as a good buying opportunity for us and for our clients as well. The British Commonwealth market, which Stanley Gibbons was also involved in, hasn't really been impacted by the administration of Stanley Gibbons.
Debbie asks quite a lot of questions, so I'm just going to extrapolate some because I don't think you're an expert on rare cars, but she does want to know, do you deal in rare literature and authors' memorabilia?
Yes, we do. And anything that we don't necessarily deal in that a client's interested in, we can help source items. So we work very closely with a firm in the UK called Chiswick Auctions, who specialise a lot in first edition books, movie posters as well, things like that. So if someone particularly wants something, as I say, we have a wants list, and we get offered lots of items on a daily basis. So if someone particularly after something, we can help them find what they're after. But we do sell rare books, signed Harry Potter, signed by J.K. Rowling. That they're still always going for record prices when they go to auction. First edition books, is a big area. So yeah, ultimately, we do trade in rare literature.
Debbie's concerned about how if she gave you her collection of books, where would they be stored, and how much would you charge her sort of annually for storage?
If she's looking to literally just store them with us and not sell them, then we would, dependent on the size of the collection, would determine what we would charge her for storage. Generally speaking, if we're holding something for a client, we charge a 0.1% of the value per year. If she's looking to sell her books through us at a later date, then we don't charge anything.
Understood.
So if anybody buys anything through us and they want us to store it, there's no ongoing storage or insurance charges. That's all completely free.
That's quite exciting. Another one from Anon. I'd love to know who these anonymous people are. As you charge commission, an investor will make an immediate loss if they buy through you. Any comments?
If they buy through us and want to sell tomorrow, yes, ultimately they will, unless we've sold them something and they take it elsewhere to sell and it's valued at a higher price. But generally speaking, you want to be considering buying a collectible for at least a sort of a 5-year period. And again, buying for us, when selling under a private treaty agreement, we charge a minimal sort of 10% commission. But at auction, generally speaking, there is zero seller's commission. The buyer would always pay the buyer's premium. So if you to buy something today, take it away and auction it through Sotheby's, Bonhams, Spink auctions, and it was valued at more than we sold it, for, then there's no seller's commission, generally speaking, in most of the major auction houses for collectibles.
Okay.
If someone's looking to make a quick gain, then ultimately buying a collectible is probably not for them. If you're looking to make a short-term gain, buy today, sell in a month's time, then it's probably not really something for them.
I know that you're not a tax expert and you flag that up in your presentation, but someone asked, is capital gains tax payable on alternate assets such as the collectibles?
Yes. In the UK, yeah.
Okay.
So again, if someone's selling a collectibles portfolio, sometimes they'll sell it in a tax year, sell part of it in one tax year and the next part in another, to offset those. But again, I'm not a tax expert, but I think the capital gains tax has changed, hasn't it, over recent years? Something we don't have to worry about here in Jersey. There's no capital gains tax at all, so we're quite lucky.
James asks another question. Do you deal in collectible toys like figurines or Pokemon cards?
No, we've not got into that area yet. Probably, if we saw that as an opportunity, then we probably would. Collectible toys, we don't have the knowledge base within the team here, and the Pokemon cards is relatively new. Pokemon cards are all sort of slabbed like the coins are these days, with grades and what have you on them. And most of those are traded through auctions and online. Again, we don't have the expertise here to be involved in that at this stage.
Yeah. So you mentioned the figure of £10,000 a few times during the presentation. I'm just wondering, and James is wondering, what is the minimum amount needed to work with you?
We provide clients with various different options. I just use 10,000 as that's just a figure that was in my head. So we have clients who invest with us. We have a service called a portfolio builder, where a client will invest £1,000 up front, and then they'll set up a monthly standing order to us for a sort of £100 a month, and we help them build a portfolio over a period of time. So yes, start small, and what we do then is we buy in advance of receiving payment. So if the clients wanted to invest £100 a month, we would give them a collectibles portfolio worth sort of £1,200 to start with, and then gradually pay it off until they owned it, all interest free. And then if they wanted to store it themselves, then once it's fully paid off, we send it to them then. But a lot of people have done that for their grandchildren, themselves, as a sort of top up to a pension. I've actually got a small portfolio builder savings, sort of bit of a savings plan, really. Just build it up over a period of 5 or 10 years. Might be something to use when your kids are going off to university, something to pass along to them. And it's a good way of getting a low. Sorry?
Pay off that mortgage that you told us about.
Well, yeah.
Right, listen, we are coming towards the end of our time with you, unfortunately. Now, Debbie, I think that you should write to Anthony offline, because she's asking an awful lot of questions. Yes. So Debbie, if you write to info@paulfrasercollectibles.com. But you did finally, you did talk about Cillian Murphy's hair. So finally, what doesn't sell well? What wouldn't you sell? I'm thinking about ivory, which is a bit of a pariah at the moment. What would?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we've had for sale that is no longer for sale. So it tends to be controversial things. For example, we inherited a Adolf Hitler signature. Now that's not on our website or anywhere available for sale. That sort of thing doesn't sell well. Stars who get into difficulties, let's say, Lance Armstrong, for example, he would have been the cyclist. He would have been a good person to invest in. So there are risks involved in buying celebrities who are still alive and going for controversially. Tiger Woods, back in sort of 2009, 10, he went through a few difficulties, and his autograph actually dropped in value and became less desirable. But as he's getting closer to retirement, the prices of his autographs are starting to creep up again. So controversial figures don't sell well. and it's very hard. It's very hard to find a buyer for certain controversial figures. Donald Trump, for example, he's very controversial to most people outside of America, but we had a couple of Donald Trump items that sold straight away in America. So it depends on the area you're trying to market the items in, really. But steer clear of anybody controversial, or would be my choice. On the other side of that as well is it's a bit of a morbid thing to think about, but buying an autograph of someone who is getting a little bit older, for example, and maybe not going to be around for too many more years is not a bad area to go down. For the Queen's signature's gone up massively since she passed away. Similar thing could be said of who am I thinking of? Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson died, a lot of the stuff on the website sold out the night he died. People bought. So that's a morbid way of looking at it. But buying someone who's very famous now, who's not going to be with us for much longer, might be is not a bad area to look into.
But it comes to us all. And thank you very much, Anthony Love, for sharing your knowledge. I'm quite sure that there's going to be a lot more questions coming to your way after this webinar. So I want to thank you very much from myself and from the team at Master Investor for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And like I say, any questions or anything, please get in touch directly. More than happy to help any way we can.
Brilliant. And just to let everyone on the webinar know that the next Master Investor webinar is on Thursday, the 17th of October at 12:30 p.m. Another lunchtime event when we'll be discussing the EV economy with Cornish metals and clean tech lithium. Thank you. Take care and cheerio.